Welcome to the Practical Buddhist. Today's talk is about the first step in ending your suffering. You may say, I don't suffer. Then let me ask you, do you feel insecure? Do you experience fear or anxiety? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel unwanted or not respected? Do you feel unloved? If you respond yes to any of these feelings, then you suffer. You may be in denial, but you still suffer. You suffer because we assume our feelings and perceptions reflect reality, that they are the truth. They thus determine how we relate to ourselves and the world around us. Yet it is these very feelings and perceptions that are the cause of our suffering, not the reality of our being or the experience itself. The purpose of Buddhist practice, in a word, is to change how we habitually have reacted to our life experiences, changing an emotional reaction to a dispassionate response, and thus not to suffer. The key is to free yourself from the control of your ego mind. The first step in this process is to be aware that all your emotions are just a product of your ego mind and do not reflect reality. Let me explain with some real-life examples. Facts have a basis in reality. Labels don't. For example, if one is unemployed and not making much money, that is a fact. To label yourself a failure, however, is the ego mind's take on that reality. That is a dependent thought that comes from family, peers, or the larger culture. The fact that your environment supports that label makes it no less illusory. It makes it seem very real, and it makes it difficult to free yourself from that perspective. But it is still just a creation of your mind. One could just as easily say, for example, things just didn't work out. That would be a dispassionate response, very different from the pejorative phrase, failure. Same facts, different perception, strikingly different emotional outcome. Another example is the weather. Heat, cold, rain, snow, these are all measurable objective facts. Yet one person will thrive in a particular condition and another person can't stand it. Our reactions to the weather are totally subjective. What causes these differing reactions? Once again, the answer is our learned experience. And this subjective view, in turn, makes us suffer. How often have we experienced weather that we don't like, whether it's high heat and humidity or unrelenting rain and snow, which have the psychological impact of making us feel distressed, miserable, depressed. What has happened is that our ego mind creates labels that it applies to everything we experience. Labels that indicate whether something is good or bad, which interfere with our perception of the true quality of things. The point is that heat, rain, cold, snow are neither good nor bad. They just are. Our perception of the quote-unquote lousy weather may seem very real to us, but it's all a function of our mind and thus illusory. Take away the labels, and we can perceive the value and the wonder of all types of weather. And so it is with all things in life. We cannot know the true nature of things because the labels in our mind interfere with how we perceive them, especially and most poignantly ourselves. Our self-image develops from our interaction with family, especially during our early formative years, and later with peers and culture. Perversely, our self-image is formed by these external valuations and actions. How we feel about ourselves does not flow from within. For most of us, the resulting self-image contains aspects which are negative. and that we often deplore or even loathe. We don't respect ourselves. We are insecure beings. How does this hurtful state of affairs come to be? It is the result of human nurture, not nature, and it begins almost from the moment of birth. Birth. Being thrust from the womb has got to be a stressful experience. When an animal is born, it is typically licked all over by its mother and is always next to the mother's warmth until it is weaned. A baby in our culture is not so fortunate. Babies need to feel secure and nourished, not just when it's convenient for us, but 24/7. But when a baby cries, its parents are often busy, or they've been told it's good for a baby to cry. Like, it's never too early to let someone learn that you can't always get what you want. Nonsense. And so the baby feels unwanted. Every time this experience is repeated, the feeling of being unwanted is strengthened. This is not good for a baby's development. When the ego develops around age 2 or 3, that feeling of being unwanted is given a label: insecurity. From that feeling of insecurity, which is the mother of all our neuroses, come feelings of fear and anxiety. This becomes our default emotional reaction throughout our life when we desire or want something badly. Surely you have experienced such fear or anxiety. But it's not only acts of omission that affect us. The actions of those we depend on or look up to have a huge impact. When children are repeatedly called bad, stupid, lazy, ugly, fat, or similar names, something that children often experience, they come to believe it because they both value the source it's coming from and they are too insecure to fight it. Too insecure to do anything other than meet those expectations in the hope of being loved. And so little Johnny comes to believe that he is bad or stupid and carries that burden with him throughout his life. Also from our learned insecurity comes the habit of labeling everything we experience in life in a way that judges it as either good or bad. We do this because it gives us a sense of power, the power to judge. I think this is good. I think this is bad. The power of self-righteousness. As an emotional bonus, if we feel something is bad, we feel superior to it. What an antidote to our insecurity. This is how the ego mind develops. This is how our brain becomes wired. The ego mind thinks it is protecting us with its feelings and perceptions, but instead, they are the cause of our suffering. It is often said that we are not in control of our emotions. That is because they are a product of our ego mind, and we are in its control. Ah, but you say, what about the rich and famous, the powerful? My friends, don't be fooled. Even famous and successful people suffer because there is a part of their self-image which is insecure. They may have been told their entire life how smart and talented they are, but they know how precarious their position is, how fast and how far they could fall. That is in fact what drives them, creates the craving, the obsession to be so successful. Being aware of this truth, that all our emotions, judgments, and cravings are just a product of the mind and are the source of our suffering, is an essential part of the healing process. Think about it carefully. If you have not watched the first video, The Goal of Buddhism, I encourage you to do so because it provides the context for the entire series. May you experience peace and happiness.